This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and I'm a podcaster, musician, keyboardist, and sound producer. And we use newsly.me, and you can stop scrolling and start listening. They take our video podcast and they turn it into an audio podcast. So if you use coupon code GHOST, that's coupon code GHOST, you can get 1 month free premium subscription. So stop scrolling and start listening. This podcast will be on Newsly later today. Use my Bluetooth headset, but it wasn't working. So, yeah, my wife had cancer, and we had to go through chemo and radiation and all kinds of issues with medical bills, and we had to get legal support because of the medical bills. And so we've made arrangements and we got things under control. But yeah, it's like that's been kind of tough. At the same time, the brand new album came out, and then I started getting some cool assistance. I have a couple of sponsors, and I've got some tools I'm using with my podcast. So there's been some really cool stuff going on today. I actually had a meeting with one of my sponsors, which is like an iOS app called Newsly. They sponsor my podcast, and they gave me a brand new coupon code, just called Ghost. They gave me. I was using Ghost 2021, and now they just said, "Well, just for 2022, use Ghost." And they gave me a brand new logo to use, and if I use their logo, they're going to push me up to their top list of podcasters on their platform. So that was kind of cool. I had an actual video call with them today, the actual company that makes Newsly, which was really cool. For a half hour, I actually talked to the head developers at Newsly. So that was kind of exciting.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, I'm sorry to hear that about your wife. How she's doing right now?
Well, she finished chemo. The chemo was really hard because when we went through the chemo, she had like 4 doses of chemo over like a 2.5 month period, and the last dose weakened her immune system, and then she caught pneumonia, and she was in and out of the hospital for like 3 weeks with pneumonia, and they couldn't figure out how to solve it. It was pretty hairy there for a little while, and then
Yeah.
they got it under control. So she finished her radiation. She had like 2 major surgeries, and now she's in physical therapy because the cancer was on her back. So she had to kind of learn to walk again. So that's kind of hard. But yeah, like a lot of bad stuff happened, but we made it through. So,
Yeah.
that's the way life
Yeah.
is.
I know my friend, he's down there at Tulane Hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana. He just got his test back. He's free from leukemia.
Well, yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah, it's
Well,
crazy.
she's in remission now. They got the tumor out, but they had to do the radiation and the chemo to keep it from coming back. And then
Yeah.
they have to keep on checking to make sure it didn't come back. So right now she's officially in remission, but they do scans like every 3 months to make sure it doesn't come
Hmm.
back. And I'm actually a cancer survivor, which is kind of weird that my wife
Right.
gets a cancer. Yeah, when I was 27 years old, I had a level 3 sarcoma on my back before I met
Mm.
my wife. It was like 3 years before I met my wife. I had a level 3 sarcoma at age 27, like 2 surgeries, radiation therapy. I was like really crazy. I was like, what the heck is happening? I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I got this crazy cancer that was very aggressive, and I made it. And then now it's like all these years later, my wife gets a cancer, like almost in the same area on her back that I had. So it's like the chances of 2 people getting that type of cancer, with these cancers aren't even that common. It's so weird that it's mind numbing. So, but we made it through. It's just how things work.
Yeah, and God is good. I'm happy she's doing well. It's in remission. Um, you sound good. How are you feeling mentally about everything?
Well, it's been hard because my 22-year-old daughter's home helping me, and then I'm starting to, I got like rheumatoid arthritis. I'm age 55, and so I've been working so much to try to take care of everything and do the housework with my daughter. Then now I'm getting like aches and pains and having to take rheumatoid arthritis creams and medications, and like, oh great, now I'm not having some trouble, but like it's not critical, but it's just like just because I'm having to work so much that
Yeah.
I got to be careful because my now that it's getting cold weather here in New Hampshire and my rheumatoid's acting up. Can't remember when my grandma and grandpa were like, yeah, my rheumatoid arthritis is acting up, and I was like, man, I'm 55 and now I'm feeling like I'm 72. He's like, what the heck?
Right.
Yeah, but that's the way
So,
it
what you
goes.
you taking on more projects with Amazon? What else are you doing for work?
Well, I'm not doing that, but I'm doing my normal business where I do IT design. Like my
Yeah.
day job is I do design for insurance companies. So I had a lot of work. I was doing 55 hours a week for almost 10 months. And then the budget ran out, but there's still the same amount of work, but they ran out of money. So this week I actually got 2 days off because I hit 40 hours on Wednesday. And normally I work all the way till Sunday and do about 55. Um, and well, Saturday and Sunday would have started again, and now I was told, oh, you can only do 40 now until we figure out where we're going to get the money. But they still got the work. So I just told them, like, okay, you guys still got the work, but I ain't doing the work until you pay me. I'm doing the 40, and I ain't doing the extra 15 until you come up with it. So don't think you're going to get the same level you were getting for the last 10 months,
Yeah.
because if you're not going to pay me, I'm not doing
Yeah.
it.
Right.
So,
So they,
they,
they want you to do 55 hours of work,
they only pay 40.
and they don't want to pay. They only want to pay you 40.
Yeah. Then they want to act like, well, we got to reconsider how much what you're doing. I said, no, you don't have to reconsider. What happened in my business is they lost three other guys. They left because of the great
Yeah.
resignation type stuff. And I had to take on their work. And then they got used to me doing it. And then they paid me the overtime. Now, when they ran out of money, for the last 10 months, you never said that you had to reconsider if I'm making good use of my time. I'm actually doing
Yeah.
four people's jobs that you never hired those three people back. So I'm doing all that work, and now you're telling me you got to reconsider. It's like don't give me BS. So
Yeah.
I actually started looking for another job, but also I put the pressure on them because I'm like, okay, if you're gonna say that, then guess what? I told them on Wednesday I hit my 40 hours on Wednesday, so I'm not working Thursday, Friday. So
Yeah.
I put them in the problem. It's like, okay, if you don't think I'm doing good, find out what happens when I'm not there, right? So now they found out for the last 2 days, and I start getting like pinged. And I'm like, hey, I told you guys I'm not working, and they start
Yeah.
sending me emails and stuff. Oh, we wanted to give you an update. It's like, did I tell you I was working? I'm not working. So that might change pretty fast.
Wow.
But yeah. So I started looking for other jobs. I always look for jobs. I'm on like LinkedIn. I'm on Dice. And when people give me trouble, I go and I look for another job, and then I put the pressure on them and say, hey, you need to give me a bump in my salary, or you need to give me a raise, or you need to give me a bonus because I could go here. And
Right.
if you don't have enough people, do you really want me to go there? And I've been able to get raises by
Hmm.
kind of forcing the issue, because like, hey, you going to keep me or you're not going to keep
Right.
me?
I mean,
You
do
just
you
got to,
think they?
yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off. What you were
No,
saying?
no, keep on going.
Oh, do you think that maybe it was because? Do you think it got anything to do with this oncoming recession that we might be going in? Is why they ran out of money, or
Well, they ran
just
out of
this?
money because they had a stupid bucket. They lost three guys. They're not paying those salaries, but their overtime bucket was only so much money. And I was pulling from the overtime bucket, and then they were trying to save money by not hiring people. And my point of view was, you lost two guys that were making like 100 grand, three guys, and you're telling me you can't pull from their salary to pay me? To me, it's just they're playing accounting games and saying they don't have the
Hmm.
money, but they do have the money. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
I work with banks. They just try to be cheap. So in my industry, we don't have enough workers. We go get people. We have workers from like India and from Nigeria, from the UK. We always running out of people. We're hiring people all the time. The problem is when we
Hmm.
hire people for what we do, it's so technical
that a lot of times, like 9 times out of 10, we get a new guy and they fail because they can't do it. Right. So it's hard to get somebody that actually knows what they're doing because we're dealing with like banking and insurance systems. And usually we have to pull from people who've been doing it for like 25 years, and if we
Yeah.
pull somebody that's new, that's like just a kid out of college, they don't know how to do it. So,
Mm-mm.
and we don't train that well. And so we tend to look for people who've been working for like Metropolitan or working for Prudential or working for Chase that they've been doing it for 25 years. And these people, they don't play games like me. They like, you're going to pay me or I'm going to leave. you know,
Right.
because if I know how to do it, then you better pay me. If I know how to do it, don't give me attitude or I'm going to leave because I can go work for Prudential. I can go down the street and work for Nationwide because they lead the same type of people. So we tend to be like pulling people from the same places. We grab somebody
Right.
from Prudential, and then Prudential grabs somebody from us.
Yeah.
So,
And and I was thinking about that, do you think that there's going to be a gap, like an employment gap in your field in the near future when it's time for, the people my age and the youth to step up and possibly take on these particular jobs? Do you think there's going to be an employment gap?
well, there's a gap because they never want to train. And so they make it very hard for new people to come in. And they tend
Mhm.
to be pulling from my age group from 55 to like 77. And the problem is, I'm going to get 77, and those 77-year-olds are going to get out of the market, right? So
Mhm.
the people who are 72 to 77 that are still working, there are guys from like the 60s and the 70s, suddenly they're not going to be able to work. They're going to get rolled
Mhm.
out, and it's going to be the us, 55-year-olds, and then we're going to turn 70, and then what these companies going to have to start doing is doing what they should have been doing, is having a guy like me take a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old and get them under my wing and teach them. But they never want to do that. They book us with so much work, we have no time to train anybody, and
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
they just have not been smart about dealing with that gap, and there's going to be a big gap because a lot of what we
Yeah.
do is we deal with technologies that don't even exist. We deal with COBOL and assembler and mainframe and all kinds of technologies are from like 1968 to 78 to 84, 85. And nobody's learning this stuff. Like you go to college, you're not going to learn it. They don't teach it. They don't teach COBOL. They don't teach assembler.
No.
They don't teach what we know. And so we have a whole generation of people like me. We have a certain level of skill on these old systems, and the insurance companies are so conservative, they stayed on these old systems for years. And even though there's stuff like AWS, like most of the industry is still not on AWS, they're on DB2 and VSAM, which are mainframe technologies, which kids don't
Yeah.
learn today. They don't learn. And so you have to pilfer from AT&T and IBM and Dell and CSC and all these big DXC, all these companies, and we're all pulling from the same pool of guys that know this stuff because we got taught in the 70s, right? Everything I learned was taught in the 70s and 80s, and
Mhm.
and they don't teach it anymore. So either the school's
Yeah.
got to teach it and get people back into it, but these are kind of technologies that are old and they're supposed to get replaced by the AWSs and Oracles of the world. But the
Mhm.
problem is the banks didn't play the ball to play that game. They kept these old systems
Yeah.
because they're cheap.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so they don't
But
want to. They
eventually
don't.
they're going to have to roll over.
Yeah, well, they're starting to slowly roll over. They're moving into crypto, and then
Mhm.
that's where some of the young kids are going to have the advantage if they learn the crypto and they learn the AWS. Then they can bring that to the bear. But the problem is the translation from the old tech to the new tech. You still need
Yeah.
old dogs like me to be able to tell somebody, well, what is this old thing doing? For
But
me to
yeah.
put it on AWS, you have to understand it. And the problem is, it's hard to understand these old systems without somebody like an old dog like me knows how to read it. So that's where there still has to be a transition of us explaining what the old tech does so that you can move it to the new tech.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's crazy because I'm very creative. I'm a thinker, I see past today, and when I was going through the stuff that you sent to me, and I was like, wow, this is really, good stuff. I'm really interested. I could see myself doing this. um I was like, I wonder if Mr. Phantom want to make this into a program where we can teach the youth this. He wanted to put a help me put a program together, where we can, you know, educate our youth, because this is the way the world is moving. Is moving into technology, certified, cloud based, and it's another way to keep our youth from running to the streets. We're giving them another way out. We're giving them a solution, instead of giving them a bunch of problems and telling them what this is what you need to do. No, we're actually giving them a solution. Because these kids, they spend majority of their time on a phone, on a laptop, on a computer, on
Yeah,
a
that's
game.
why I try to take advantage of the fact that they're already on like a PlayStation or an Xbox or their iPhone or an iPad. They're already, into gaming. They're on social media. They're computer savvy enough to know they got to update their phone, right? They know they got to run the iOS
Hmm.
update. They know they got to run their Windows update. They've actually learned enough to be somewhat tech understanding to say, oh, why do I have to? Then it just takes a little bit more to say, why do I have to run the iOS update? Why do I
Oh
have to
no, they
run that?
hacking. They hacking.
Yeah,
They advanced. They're hacking.
yeah, they're starting
Like,
to figure it out. So they starting to like say, well, why do I have to? The kid asked the questions like, why am I running this update? What is going on? And then you can start to understand the opportunity, because the
hmm
opportunity is the reason you're running an update is because there has to be a whole team of programmers that every single app you use on your phone, every single program and website you go to has to continually get updated by human beings that are doing
hmm
jobs to make sure the code works, because things are changing. Because every
hmm
day Microsoft changes their code. Every time they change their code, anybody that wrote anything that works on Windows and Microsoft changes it, that's tons of work for a team that has to go and change their program to make it work. So that's hours and hours they can bill at really good money. A typical BSA programmer, we make $65 to $120 an hour, and we can work overtime. I work $65 an hour, and I can do overtime. I can hit 55 hours, 60 hours a week.
hmm
That's real money, you know,
hmm
and it's a skill that you can, put in the bank, and I work from home. I don't even have to go into an office. So
Right.
it's a big equalizer. It's kind of like when you watch Star Trek and you look at Leonard Nimoy playing Spock. It's that Spock kind of mind that's like using that logic. Or you watch Data on Next Generations, like that kind of idea that logic is the equalizer, math is the equalizer. If you go into a situation and you know the tech, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter if you're black or Korean or Asian or Russian or whatever. If you know the tech, you can stand up and you can get the money. And they don't, they have to deal with me. And maybe they don't want to deal with me, but they got to deal with me. so
Yes, right.
so that was the one thing I found. Like if you go into a situation that's more like business or social, I like the technical, because it's like it's either you know how to do it or you don't.
Right.
And it gives you a really good balance that you can survive based on your wits. And it's just a matter of like understanding that there's so much work that can be done, that we got to teach our kids that they know um it's not you shouldn't be scared of the math. You shouldn't be scared of trying to learn how to do the tech, because that's how you're going to get the money. That's what the jobs are. You don't want to be working at the
hmm
Burger King. You don't want to be working, DoorDash. You don't want to be working at the Walmart. You want to use your head. So in the next pandemic, it don't matter. You could work from home. You're making like over 100 grand. You don't got to worry about losing your house or losing your rent. You
Right.
can be working all the time in
It's,
demand, and eventually you could. be so in demand. I mean, I lived in Tokyo for 2 years because I was able to get a job there. I know people that have been able to go to France, been able to go to Canada, be able to go to, anywhere. Because this tech work, I mean, I'm looking at jobs right now. There was a job that was out of Norway, and I might be able to go there. There's jobs there in Australia. There's jobs all over the world. That this tech is so global that once you learn it, you can be anywhere. And you just got to realize that you can be just like Indians that come here to work. We can go anywhere we want to go to work. And so you can become like a global citizen and get yourself into learning some things about the rest of the world and not just be stuck here.
Yeah, that's yeah. And and also, what is the starting cost, or what is the starting pay for just getting the AWS certification, just coming in? What is that
Well,
starting
just
pay?
coming, you usually coming in, you're probably talking about $30 to $40 an hour. And then once you really know what you're doing, you'll start getting to the higher level. That's more based on actually doing like project work. So once you have these certifications, you're above $20 an hour. You're closer to like 30. And then once you know what you get more, you get higher level certification, you get project work, you start doing really advanced project work with AWS. The more you do it, let's say you get 5 years under your belt, then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to start getting like into the $50, and then you get even more certifications, you get more project experience, you work on some significant projects. Like you get on a
Mm-hmm.
project the last 6 months to a year, you can put it on your resume and say what you did. Then somebody else sees your resume, and basically what happens is you go on LinkedIn, you do these projects. You might do them as a consultant, you might do them as an employee. As your resume gets better, companies see it on LinkedIn, and then they offer you more money. And that's how you get to a better place. The way the world works in IT is sometimes we shift jobs because jobs will pay. Like when I first started working, I was making like 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to another company and I got a boost up to 50. Then I went to
Mm-hmm.
another company and got to 70. And then I went to I got to Hartford and went to Japan and I hit 130. And then I kind of went back down to like 110, and then I got back up to like 130. Now I'm like 138, 140, and it's like you just over time you just get to a place where now I'm actually looking to try to bounce from like 138 to 150, 160. And that's where I'm trying to get to that sweet spot because I got the number of years to go in. And so I might have to go into management, I might have to go into architecture, might not just be able to be a business system analyst. I might have to go into a level of IT project management that still requires technical capability, but is more of a management role. Because I'm 55 and I could do it. So that's how it kind of works. And sometimes you have to leave a position to get that money. The way this world is, and you don't stay 20 years with the same company. you you
Yeah.
you kind of bounce and to get the better benefits and the better deals, and then you're moving your
Right.
401k all the time but
All right.
to the next company. But that's kind of the way the trajectory is, because like in order to get to the next thing, sometimes the company you're with isn't the place to be. You have to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of trajectory.
Yeah. And then, when I had did my research, because I did my research on the test and how much it would cost, and I wanted to know, it has three different levels. It has the cloud practitioner exam, the associate level and exam, and the professional level and specialty exam, ranging from $100 to $300. Does it matter between any of those tests, if you start at entry level, or they will start you at a higher level if you did the professional level test? Like, how does that actually work?
Well, I mean, if you get, the entry level is the initial level. You kind of need that to kind of get the bare bones of understanding what it is. Then you go and you
Yes.
take the professional levels. Usually you take the professional levels after you've been in a job, right? So you take the entry level,
Okay.
you get hired, and then when you get hired, you realize, okay, there's a reason for me to do the professional level because now I'm actually doing it for a living. And then because you're doing it for a living, you actually get project work where you can take advantage of that professional level because you're actually going to use it. Right? Until you're actually
Mm-hmm.
using it, it might not make sense to do it because then you're going to forget it or not use it. So, like, you usually get an entry level to get in the job and start doing the work. And then you start taking the professional level and specialty levels when you're with a bank or maybe you're with a retail company or maybe you're with like an online company that uses AWS and you start actually using specific modules that require additional training. So you do that
Okay.
additional training because that job requires you to know that tech. So it's kind of really based on whatever work you're doing on AWS. There's work for, companies that are kind of the mom and pop companies, and there's work for these big global companies. You're working on a really big system, right? That's doing a big website. That's not some mom and pop website. It's like, a multinational company that's introducing a different capability that they need somebody to understand AWS. So you have to, you come in and you start having to learn very specific tech to do the different things they want. They want different dashboards, or they want connections to secure servers, or they want all kinds of stuff that's more encrypted and more detailed, more, dealing with privacy rules. You're dealing with like, oh, I got to support European privacy rules. I got to support Asian privacy rules. I got to support multi-currency, or I got to support like international laws. So then it requires you to understand like a different level of the system. So you have to learn more.
Right. Okay, so that's exactly how that works. Is once you get into the job and you start doing professional level work, then you can go ahead and take the test so that you can get into different additional roles. Okay, so that explains a lot. So usually, okay, if I wanted to design a program teaching kids the AWS certification, what age would you think would be appropriate to start the program for?
I think you got to be somebody that's like seriously probably either somebody that's not going to go to college and they want to take it serious and do it as a job so they could
Hmm.
start at like 18, or you could take somebody that's already going to community college, and they're like 21 to 24, and then they
Right.
want to have a good day job for their college, and they want to actually maybe make this the focus of the college, and they're taking comp sci or taking other things. But they're also like it's good for the 18-year-old or even a 17-year-old that's serious. They realize like, hey, I like hacking. I like computers. I like getting into it. I want to work with Amazon. I don't want to work in a warehouse. I want to work on the tech. I want to end up working for Amazon Robotics. So,
Hmm.
so I want to get into tech. So then, that you could have somebody that's 16 that wants to get into the tech. I mean, when I was getting into tech, I was like 14. So it really depends on if they're serious, if they're not, playing around. Like if you get a 14-year-old kid that knows they want to get into tech, they could be more disciplined than an 18-year-old. It really depends on the person, you know, because the 14-year-old ain't gonna be able to get the job until they're 16. And some of these jobs, because they're kind of professional level jobs, they probably 18 is like the sweet spot because you actually could legally get the job. If you're 16 or something, maybe you could find a way that somebody would hire you. Um,
Right.
because they're interns and stuff, they can do stuff. So you might be able to come in and intern and kind of build up, and then when you turn 18, actually start making money. But yeah, it really, a lot of tech is so much of an equalizer. You could start younger and maybe just be an intern for a while and then get into it officially.
Okay, that's good. Oh, okay, I like this. I mean, because a lot of our kids, because of ADHD, short attention span, the cost of college, not being able to qualify. our kids are more advanced technology, but they may struggle a little bit with reading. With this cloud certification and then coming at that entry level, do they do a little more training than what you say at your level working with the banks and the insurance company?
Oh yeah, I mean, AWS is a certain skill set. I would suggest that anybody that gets into this needs to actually, a couple of things I would do is, reading comprehension is still important. I would
Hmm.
suggest if you're going to get into this world, read a newspaper, read a book, go to the library, actually read books. You need to get your reading comprehension up, because part of this work is not just going to be the certification. Eventually, you're going to be asked to work on projects, and you're going to have to read emails and read instructions and understand what people management's telling you to do.
Right.
And you're gonna it's not just gonna be the certification. You're gonna have to use it in the real world. In the real world, somebody might send you a document, a Word document that tells you what they want. You're gonna need to be able to read that to know what you need to do. So you need to make sure your reading comprehension is good, right? If you were getting C's, you need to kind of boost it up and get to a B. If you were getting a B, you should probably try to boost it up and get an A. You should try to either start reading newspapers, start reading. Don't just, not read. You need to read and have some critical thinking. It's going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to help. It's part of the process of becoming professional. Like when I do the stuff I do, we write documents that can be like 100 pages long, you know, that go into really detail. We write diagrams. We do lots of logic. So it's not just our certifications. It's actually comprehending the problems we get. We get business problems. We have to think it out. When you first start, you might get simple tasks, but if you want to start making the big money, you've got to be able to go beyond that. And if you're comfortable just staying at the $30,000-$40,000 level and being kind of like a workman, working on very like more controllable situations that don't take a lot of critical thinking, you could still do good. It's kind of like a telephone worker that's going in and fixing the wires and stuff. But do you want to get to the level where you make the big bucks? You start to have to use a little thinking, critical thinking on top of your skill.
Right. Yeah, and you got to be a little critical, especially in this world, just to get to the level that you want to be. Because I mean, because at the bottom, it's like it's a dog eat dog world. It's real savage. It's like crabs, they'll pull you down for a little bit of coin. So it's kind of like if we can get this information to not just our people, because everyone is struggling, but to the people, you know, and get them to understand, there's other ways, there's other means, and we don't have to succumb to our environment. We just have as adults, because we didn't have a lot of technology when I was growing up. Like we didn't have cell phones. We have to be able to evolve and understand where the world is going and not be like, oh, because the world is like this is why these kids are like this. But we have to like meet the world and meet our children where they're at, and teach them how to teach them another way of getting income, teach them another way of doing things, because it's different, and I used to be,
Well, I think
huh?
the other thing to understand is, when we were kids, like it was very expensive to have a laptop. The cell phone you have right now, if you have an iPhone or an Android, it has more power than the PCs that are around in 78 and 72 and 84, 85, even up to the 90s. Your
Hmm.
iPhone is a computer. Your iPhone can do a Word document. It can do Excel. It can do advanced mapping. It can do almost everything a PC can do. So when people say, well, I don't have it, your cell phone has so much power and so much capability. If you learn really how to use what you got, not just talk on it and play games, you can do a lot with your cell phone. So every kid that's got one, there's no excuse to not get into tech, because you can control a robot with your cell phone. You can program a robot with your cell phone. You can kick off programs off the web on your cell phone. Hackers do it all the time. These things have tons of power. They have tons of capability. There's tons of capability you can get into. It's just a matter of learning how to get to it. And so Yeah, I mean, the people can say, "Well, I don't have the means." Yes, you do. If you have an iPhone or an Android, you do. You have it right in your hand.
Hmm.
So
Right.
you gotta get rid of excuses and get people into like. There's a certain level of discipline. Learn that what the tools that you do have, and then you're actually gonna have to spend some time actually doing something. You're gonna have to take some time and maybe not do what you like to do, but do what's gonna be good for you.
You're right. Yeah. And that's what you have to do. You have to do what's good and pretty much um what's best. So let's get into the music part of it. How's the music going? You just came out with Peg Forever. How is that? How you feel about it? How many streams you got? What's your
Well,
favorite song?
the whole album is a kind of crazy record. It took me like 2 years to put it together. It is
Mhm.
not typical what you see today. It's like it runs 2 hours and 13 minutes, and there are 19 songs. My favorite
Mhm.
song is the first track. It's called "French Kiss Now Only Your Lips." but, it was written as like a jazz kind of jam, and I actually recorded it live on my
Mhm.
multi-track in my home studio, and it was like the third take that I did live, and I liked the third take, and I kind of kept it the way it is. And the whole album has a lot of stuff that I call um, stream of consciousness expansive sound. And so what that means is I write songs as a musician. I have an idea and I go in and I put it down and I play it live. And I
Mhm.
write a brand new song and I actually put it down live. I don't go into the grid and go back and change things. I play it on my Moogs and my Rolands. I play it out. It's kind of what people used to do. And I find that it makes it sound more dynamic and it makes it sound more like have more soul to it, and just it just feels more open. And that's what I like to push. And when I work with other musicians, that's kind of why people like deal with me, is because they like the fact that I do these kind of older school type of recordings.
Mhm.
And so it's been doing really well among other producers. I mean, I'm not getting super big numbers, but if I look at my Spotify numbers on the album right now, and I look at my single, and I look at since I released it, that French Kiss song. Let me see. I'm looking at my numbers right now. Let's see what I got. I got to actually change my. I can actually look at my metrics through a tool
Mhm.
called Spotify for Artists. So I mean, this is only looking at Spotify, but I'm actually going to look at it for the last and see what I get. So hold a second. So Peg Forever, the album so far, um, is getting a pretty good attention on it. We've got about like 2,000 streams on the album itself, and then
Good.
we've got about like almost 2,000, like 1,900 on the French Kiss song, and
Mhm.
this is kind of a very experimental album, but I had an album that came out before it, and that came out like maybe at the beginning of the year, and I had over 10,000 plays on an album called Deep Romantic Intent. So I already had an album this year called Deep Romantic Intent. It came out like in March, and I got 10,562 plays on that. So
Mhm.
Hey Forever just came out, and it's got about 2,055. And I would say like the album Deep Romantic Intent, that was a shorter album. It's only like a 50-minute album. So my experimental album is a harder sell because it's like a 2 hour long album.
Mhm.
so, but I'm pushing it. I'm still out there working on it. I actually have a Japanese producer that liked what I was doing. I'm actually doing a collaboration with them. I'm working with a South African game developer that liked some of the songs, and now I'm going to actually work on a soundtrack, like an hour-long soundtrack for a game. It's going to take me like a year to do it. And then an experimental R&B producer liked what I was doing, and so this is kind of like the strange thing that happens is like when you do music the way you want, and maybe it doesn't make super big money, like on the top 20 or something, but other
Right.
producers and musicians, they actually dig what I do. And so I get other work. that actually make more money than my own album. But because I
Right.
put out my album, it's out there, and then what I find is other musicians and producers like what I do, and then I get to work with them, and so they end up supporting my projects to be able to put these things out. And even though it doesn't maybe make as much financial success it would seem, I still get to make money because I get to work on other people's stuff. So it kind of supports me. So you kind of get what I'm saying,
Right.
right?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I kind of get to have my cake and eat it too. I get to put out my work and continue to be an artist. And I've been Phantom Electric since 2016. And a lot of people, if they had my numbers, they wouldn't be working. I've had pretty good numbers overall. All Peg songs, we've got 114,000 plays on SoundCloud, 117,000 plays since we started on Spotify, and about like 70,000 on iTunes. So it's like more than my neighbor listening to me. And this is why I get these producers from other countries. They find out about me, and I'm kind of a niche. 100,000 people listening worldwide.
Hmm.
It's not enough to make the money. In order to make money in this industry, you got to have like 7 million, 5 million people listening. But it's not just my neighbor. It's enough people that I get attention from producers and other musicians, and then I get to work and I get to play gigs and stuff because I'm kind of like a musician's musician. Other
Hmm.
musicians come to me because they like that I'm doing something different. So that's how I kind of survive.
And that's good that you very creative and you hustle the way you do, so you make sure that you have income coming in. And and I just want to ask you a question. It's kind of like it's just off topic a little bit. I want to see how you feel about this because you know um in this dimension, in this world, this three-dimensional world here, our task is for us to pair bond, to be able to love and support one another. And the biggest issue that a lot of women and a lot of men are having with each other is lack of communication, understanding, and comprehension. But sometimes, me as being a woman, I feel like I'm not being heard. Other women feel like they're not being heard. I mean, give us some advice. How you and your wife have been able to stay together and hold it together and be together for so long? Because we do know relationships are not perfect. And and how do you feel about the man who feel like he doesn't have to work? He could just sit there. Yeah, he
Well,
could just sit there and be there and not,
I've never
you
been that
know.
guy. See, my family is really my family background. My grandpa on my mom's side was a coal miner. My
Mhm,
dad's father was a factory worker, and he was in the Negro baseball league. My pop
mhm,
was an insurance agent that worked like crazy hours. My
mhm,
uncle was an Air Force officer and got into AT&T. So a lot of people in my family, all the men always worked. They bought the house. They
mhm,
bought the mortgage, right? But the wives
mhm,
in my family, most of the wives maybe had jobs, but the man was taking care of the house. So we kind of very old school traditional structure. So in my family, the Jones family, and my wife, my mom, the Hall family had a history of the men being there, of the men actually doing the work and supporting the family and not leaving and actually staying. And so, like, I had that kind of background, and my brothers and I, we've kind of all been in a situation where we've kind of replicated that, because that's what we saw. And I think it's kind of like, I was a sociology major in college, and it really is, if you're in an environment where that happens, then you tend to replicate. If you're in an environment where that doesn't happen, you replicate that. So that's a problem. If you're in a
mhm.
city, if you're in a situation where all the men walk away, then you're probably going to see all the men keep on walking away. And they're going to not step up because they didn't have to. If you're in a
Yeah.
situation where people actually did it, then you have a different scenario. So it really, sometimes I would always suggest to people, like, a person doesn't really change that much. So if you run into a guy that shows a tendency that he's not driven and he's not working and you're the one working, don't think he's ever going to step up. Actually find a guy that does have something, because it's very difficult to change. And if you think
Hmm.
you're going to change them, that ain't going to work.
That ain't gonna work.
They ain't gonna work. If you want a guy that's gonna be there, you got to find a guy that has a day job, that has a house, that has his apartment, that has a car, not living at his mom's house. If you find a guy like that, he's likely to stay like that. If you find a guy that you're attracted to, but he's got all kinds of problems, those problems are going to continue. It's not usually going to get that much better. It's going to be what it was when you met him. And it might get worse. So that's my kind of lesson in my family. Like, well, all the men, we've always kind of been like that. So maybe that's not what happens everywhere else, but that's kind of what we live with. So I really think that you have to, that any guy listening, you really got to step up. And like I'm kind of, I don't mean to be judgmental, but when I come from my kind of background, I can go back to my great grandpa, and he had a house. He paid
Hmm.
for it, and he did it. Then, and when I did it, my pop did it, and we're doing it. It's like I really have a hard time when seeing somebody that's like, "What are you doing? Are you not stepping up?" I was like, "Go do it."
Right.
you know. So it's like I don't literally have a lot of room. Uh, so I mean, I understand why some people might not be able to do it, because like structural racism and all kinds of things. I grew up with structural racism, and I deal with it in my job, but I have a different perspective. I hit my glass ceilings, and I understand it, but it don't stop me from moving. It don't
Yeah.
stop me from doing my hustle. It doesn't stop me from doing what I'm doing. I still fight, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, my thing is this, if a lot of women would wake up and, have some moral fiber about themselves, like, I don't need a man, because they'll accept anything. And men know that because, they can see a lot of women trauma. So they'll know, well, I ain't got to deal with you. You want me to go to work and you want me to do this, and I can go chill with her and be with her. And I know I could do what I want to do over there. And I think if more women would just get it together, then I think that will require those particular men, because it's not all of them, but it's a lot of them. And instead of them being accountable for the type of person they is, that these are the ones that go and blame mama for everything. The one that
Well,
was
yeah,
there.
I think you have to make sure you don't get into codependency, and I understand people don't like being by themselves,
Hmm.
and people don't like being alone, and people want to have some kind of connection. But it's like you got to choose a quality connection, right? It's like if it's not quality, what's the point? And I understand that's
Exactly.
hard. It's very hard because, yeah, I can understand like a woman might not want to show her friends that she, because people get judged, and really maybe women need to be a little bit more kinder to themselves. Like
Hmm.
if you choose not to have a man, and you choose to focus on your career, your girlfriends shouldn't be coming down on you, right? They
No,
shouldn't be acting like you got something wrong with you. They should support you, right? And they shouldn't kind of lead you to go with a codependent guy that's gonna say like, "Oh, why I can stay at Sally's house? Why don't you let me stay at your house?" No, that's not
no.
gonna work. you know, because I don't need you. Yeah, and if you think about things, like I said, with the global world, you don't just have to be in your neighborhood. You could be working somewhere in the rest of the world, and you might find a man that you didn't expect. Maybe not the man from your hood, but a man in a rest somewhere else in the world that would appreciate you. So you got to open up your eyes and see what's possible. You know, it might not be what you thought. It could be something else.
And I believe you. I 100%. I believe you when it comes to that, because I'm a stickler on not settling, not just putting up with anything because I see everybody else around me putting up with anything. And I'm like that now with the females I allow around me. Because we sit here and we preach about that energy travels and it transfers. So a lot of times you got to be careful about the circles you run in, and the people you have around you. And when you wake up to that, it's kind of like insanity. You can't keep doing the same stuff thinking that you're going to get a different result. So when you wake up to that, you got to move different. You got to do different, and a lot of times when you try to explain what's going on to people, they think that you acting funny. They think that you're changing. And it's like, no, I can't. I've been doing that same thing all this time and look where it's getting me. So now I got to do this. This is working for me. I'm going to stick with this because I no longer want that. And I think that, in this world, we teach so much about pair bonding, and you have to pair bond. Is that people are pair bonding with just anything, they're accepting
Yeah.
anything at the end of the day. And it's sad. And it's like, I have a group of people that they won't even deal with me because no, if you feel like I have to pair bond with somebody in your clique in order for to do business with me, now you trying to trick me out of my business. And
Yeah.
see, and I'm gonna have to come for everybody, Nick, when that happens.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Well, yeah, they're trying to to hook you in. It's people want to have connections to tie you
mhm,
to their situations, kind of like when you have arranged marriages. Some
yeah,
cliques are trying to build their business through marriage or through connections with certain people, and it's not. A lot of times marriage is about in the rest of the world, and even here, a lot of marriages are about building social connections and about, like, for business more than love. And
mhm,
people might not realize that everybody's got this whole idealized vision of love. Yeah, yeah, you want to marry your soulmate. Yeah, but a lot of people don't do that. They settle because of peer pressure, because of parental pressure, because of girlfriend pressure, but the guy pressure saying, "Oh, you got to make it just so she's a good wife. She'll be a good mother to your kids." And then you're like, "Well, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want to travel the world. Maybe I want to focus on my business. Maybe I don't want to get into that. Maybe I want
yeah,
to just kind of focus on my dream. I want to own my business. I don't have time to be dating and get caught up in all this hype. I want to do the work." And for many years, for me, I mean, I didn't really date until I was like 28, and I was just focused on my career. And people were saying, "What's wrong with you? Why don't you?" And I said, "Hey," they sent me, people that weren't, like, thinking the way I was. And I'm a musician, I'm an artist, and I'm an IT guy. And girls will get bored. They say, "Oh, you're like freaking Spock, or you're a nerd, or you're this and that." And I'm like, "Okay." It's like, you don't get me. And, like, I'm not gonna go out of my way, and I didn't even want to go out. It's like I'll go back
mhm,
to work on my music or whatever. And then I finally found my wife, who was like was an artist, so she understood me because she was an artist. And I said, well, that's
mhm,
what I wanted. I wanted to find a woman that was an artist herself, that would appreciate, like, the stuff I was doing, and actually be able to have a conversation and tell me what she thought about it, and not just say it was nice. No, tell me in detail what you think about my art. And if when you're an artist, you really want somebody that actually can have a long conversation about your art. And if you can't
right,
have that, like, well, how are you going to feel good with this person when they don't get something that's important to you, right? As an artist, that's
right,
so important. If you can't have a good conversation, a deep conversation, not just, "Oh, that's pretty," and that's it, right? I want you to tell me, did you like the color of the bass? Did you like what I did with this movement? Did you like what I did with the hook? And to be able to talk for hours about
mhm,
it, and actually talk to them about they're a novelist, and actually read their novel and give them feedback. That's cool. That's when you found your soulmate, because you actually have something to talk about. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's important that you actually can have, like, shared things you can talk about that is dynamic, and it's not just sex, and it's not just this, that you actually have the long run thing that can you stay together because you have something in common.
right.
you you know
Right, and you're actually having conversation and you're not having lies. See, there's a difference between having real verbal conversations, factual things that took place in your life, versus having a bunch of lies, made up stories, so that you can make yourself look decent to that person. Because my thing is this: if you have to lie about anything, then maybe that situation is not for you, because then your subconscious is gonna come in. You're not gonna be happy with yourself. So therefore you're not gonna be happy with the situation. And that's where you start to go sabotaging everything, because you done told all these lies and you can't keep up these particular lies. So I've always told my mom and them that they kind of made my life a little difficult, you know, um, because of not allowing me to watch TV, and I had to read books and stuff like that, while other parents let their kids go play outside and, poison them with let them watch TV. So the way I think is a little different than other people, so I had a guy to tell me that it's gonna be hard for me to find a man because I was too smart. And I thought
Well,
that was
that's the
hilarious.
wrong that's the wrong kind of guy, because the thing is, like, that means he can't deal with an intelligent woman, right?
Yeah,
So he wants a woman he can control. So that's his world. Just because that's his world doesn't mean it's your world. Like,
yeah,
there are definitely people in the world that you could find that are not intimidated by an intelligent woman. Actually, they want an intelligent woman, because they want to have a deep conversation. And it's not just about, oh, you do this for me and you be subjective, subject to me, and you have this kind of male attitude that can come from, bad Christianity, where they're like, oh, because God says I should be in charge. Like, come on, come off of that. Like, everybody has a say. Everybody has their spirit. Not one gender is over another. And so you should be more open to allowing a person to be who they can be. And if a woman wants to be a CEO and she wants to be a director, she wants to be in charge of her life, don't be intimidated. Be happy.
exactly. And that's crazy. And it's crazy that you said that about the bad Christianity. Now that's Psalms 31. That Psalms 31 is geared towards a woman who is a wife. I had a man tell me, well, do you feel about the Psalms 31? Because you're not, exemplifying that. I said, well, I'm not supposed to. I'm not married. I'm not doing married stuff for a man that may marry me. I'm not doing like, no, that's a setup. And I think a lot of women, we get caught up in a setup. Just like I read somewhere where, it's a myth that a woman has to help a man build in order to be chosen and to be picked. And that's not correct. So I'm
Right.
not,
I think there's a lot of dogma. And the problem is, a male centered religious point of view has, in multiple religions, not just Christianity, put women at the bottom. And there's a
yeah,
reason for it. It's just like the way black people get put in the bottom from a class perspective, or there's classism, there's racism, there's sexism. And the problem I have with some religions is it's full of classism, it's full of sexism, and it's full of racism. And
mhm,
people are not using your head. God gave you a head so you could go and read a book. And when you read a book and you don't just read the Bible, when you read philosophy, you read science, you're not opening up that part of your brain. You're going to read a piece of paper that was written 3,000, 4,000 years ago, and then reinterpreted by men who want to keep women in a bad position. So
exactly.
that's not smart. Maybe you think it's smart. So being book smart only on the Bible is very one dimensional, because there's so many other books you can read. There's so many other philosophies and science and all kinds of things. And the problem I have with religion is it makes you stupid. It makes you not use the other part of your brain. You have a part, God gave you a brain so you can think something out, so you don't jump over the cliff, that you don't hit the wall, that you use your head. And then you go and let faith make you hit the wall. You make
Hmm.
faith put you in a situation, it causes a disaster. When you have a logical brain that would say, what are you doing? Why are you
Hmm.
touching fire when you shouldn't touch fire? Why are you putting yourself in a toxic situation and you know it is because something in a book told you to do it?
Yeah.
What kind of logic is that? It's people got to get beyond that. It's the 21st century. We're talking about going to Mars. We're talking about being able to colonize the Milky Way, live on asteroids, and you're going to let a book tell you to get slapped by a man, to get pushed down,
Well,
to
you know
be
what?
subjected to a man. Come on.
When it comes to when it comes,
Oh, I'm back. Come back in. I think you ran out, so you got to come back in. I'll let you back in if you come back in. That's one of these things we timed out. We did pretty good, but I think it times out, so you got to come back in. So we'll wait for her to come back. Here we go. Yeah, you're coming back. Yeah.
yeah, I was saying a lot of men, they don't believe in God. But when it comes to when a woman talk about the Bible, oh, but y'all not following what that Bible say. We following what that Bible say. But we'll follow a man that first know how to submit underneath God, because if once you submit underneath God, then you're able to lead correctly. Because a lot of them don't even know how to lead, because they come off as if they don't even like women.
Hmm. Yeah, well, a lot of men.
And
That's the
it's
problem is they actually don't like women. They've been trained.
right.
Well, like you can't blame it on everything, but I mean, slavery set up a situation where human beings are property, right? So, problem in an African American society, slavery set up the dynamic that people are property. What continued after slavery is thinking that your wife is your property. It is a slave mentality, and you got to get out of it. Malcolm
Mhm,
X used to talk about slave mentalities. People forget about what he used to say, you know, and I understand Dr. King's very important, but people need to read Malcolm too, because he railed against slave mentality. He railed against the not thinking and not making good decisions, right? So I think you need to look at all kinds of philosophies. You look at Dr. King, you look at Malcolm X,
mhm,
you look at Thoreau, you look at Milton, you look at like all kinds of classical stuff. There's lessons to be learned in
mhm,
Shakespeare. There's lessons to be learned in Nietzsche and Sartre. There's all this in Camus. There's all kinds of really important lessons, and the only one people want to talk about is the Bible. And there's all kinds of,
mhm.
and people got to use their head. And then remember when people were slaves, who was telling us about this religion? Where did our original religion come from in Africa? It wasn't that. It was something else. So
Mhm,
my daughter has dived into the female centered structures in Africa before you actually had patriarchies in Africa. You had very advanced societies. They did not believe in Christianity. They had their own religion. Those were all brought in by Western colonialists. So African
yeah.
Americans need to understand that part of the legacy of slavery is that Christianity was actually forced on us. So if you really want to learn who
Mhm.
we are, you need to go a little further.
Yeah, but we need to go back, because basically they had the Samaritans and they had the
Yep.
Kemites. And a lot of us, we're not Samaritans, we're Kemites. That Greek philosophy came later, centuries
Yeah.
later, you know, and they stole a lot of the history from, the Kemites. And, like I said, people say I'm weird sometimes. No, I'm not weird, because I realize to I observe the situation for what it is before I open up my mouth and I say anything about it, because people at first will only show you what they want you to see. People don't never just out the door be them. And I had to learn those type of people who just out the door can't be them. They don't like themselves. So that automatically tells me that you're gonna have an issue with people. You don't like people. You're gonna, it goes like it goes further. I try not to overthink situations, from time to time. But, I just, I just think that the disconnect between the man and the woman, the man needs to be the man and allow the women to be the women. allowed to accept them for who they are, because we all got trauma, we all got issues, we all been hurt, we all been put through some stuff. We all have our own journey. And a lot of these men, they want to control, you know, how the woman moves and acts and conduct herself. And a lot of times it's not wrong. Just because it's something that you wouldn't do, that doesn't mean that's wrong for she's doing anything wrong. And the biggest lie is that I'm seeing is that it's because of the single parent home is the reason why the world is the way it is. And I'm like, well, no, that's not true. Because Jeffrey Dahmer grew up in a two-parent home to the age of 17, and look what he
Well, there's a
did.
lot of dysfunction in two-parent homes. It's not necessarily, you know,
Thank you.
and so
Thank
so
you.
it's like
Somebody said it.
really kind of case by case. I am a sociology major. I did study a lot of
Mhm,
microcosm, macrocosm of society, and you can have college graduates coming from a single parent family. You have a PhD coming from a single parent family. You could have somebody like Dahmer coming from a two-parent family. You can have people fail at all kinds of levels. There's somebody is super rich and totally fail. Parents there, tons of money, and then totally fail. Die of drug abuse. Not just people in the ghetto. Rich people get OD and take themselves out real early. So it's really
mhm.
the dynamic of the psychology going on in that home. All the money can't save you if it's toxic. And it doesn't matter if there's two people. If two people are in
Mm-mm.
that rich house and they're toxic, the kid's going to come out in a bad situation. If you're
Exactly.
poor and there's a lot of love, you can have five siblings and you all succeed. You know, like my great grandpa, he was a coal miner, six kids. They all went off and did well and all have their own houses. Wasn't super rich. Everybody got their own house. Everybody stayed together. Everybody had a job. That
Hmm.
that can't happen. Yeah, it does happen. So it really is kind of case by case scenario, kind of dependent on how good people are to each other. If people treat people with respect, this is where I kind of go back. Like, if you're going to use a book to justify being a jerk to your woman, then I think that's where it's going to go. You're gonna be a jerk, and she's going to leave when she figures it out. So
Exactly.
it's like you can't
Ex-
have that kind of dynamic. Like, if you're going to be a hypocrite and say your wife can only dress a certain way, and then you go to the club with the boys every night, and you've got three girls on the side, and then you get mad if she even talks to somebody, that's your problem. That's not her problem. You got the problem.
exactly. Or, if you sleeping like, men act like we want a man that sleeps with every woman. We don't, if you don't want your woman sleeping with everybody, we don't want our man sleeping with everybody.
Yeah,
My thing is, you get what you put out in this universe. So if you're not being loyal, then how do you expect anything to be loyal to you?
yeah,
You get what you put out in this
yeah.
universe.
Well, I'm a Buddhist, so that's the way we think, is like the law of cause and effect. Like, Buddhists believe in the law and cause and effect. So if you're out there and you say something but you don't do the same thing, you tell your woman she has to be loyal, she has to stay home, she has to do all this stuff, but you got five women on the side, and you're gambling and drinking, but you say you don't gamble and you don't drink, you smoke, you say you don't smoke, and you do, right? Then you're a hypocrite. And in the
Yeah.
law of cause and effect, you're going to have a bad result. It's not going to work out, because what you're doing,
Because you can't hide it.
yeah, you're doing negative
You can't.
actions, and negative actions aren't going to come out in a positive way. And the problem I have with some Christianity is people think because they say something that mimics the book, but then they do something other, that somehow they're following the Christian way. It's like, no, you're not. Like, you got to walk the
Mm-mm.
walk and talk the talk. You can't just be on the surface pretending to be a good person. You actually have to be that good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't
Yeah.
like things that may allow people to enable people to pretend that they're good when they're not. You know
Right.
that
And it's crazy. And then, you deal with those people who go out of their way. to mess with people, to cause havoc and harm. And that be the craziest to me. That's crazy. But it's like, you could tell when a person is lying and they feeding you a bunch of lies. And it's kind of like you are insane. Like you keep doing the same stuff, thinking you're going to get a different result. Like, it's like, I think that's a mental issue where you constantly lie to yourself.
You know,
Do you think so?
some people are just built on self deception, and it's
Mm-hmm.
dangerous. I can point out a bunch
It
of
is.
things going on today because of self deception. There's a lot of people who believe their own hype, and it's always not a
Mm-hmm.
good thing. The one thing I was taught when I went to school was holistic thinking and critical thinking, to the point that you look in the looking glass, you look in the mirror, and you ask yourself the critical question. You don't, it's the most important thing to say about where you are in life is, I don't know everything. I know I don't know everything.
Exactly.
I know I need to learn. I know I need to do better. If you say you're perfect and you never make a mistake, I don't want to be around a person that thinks that, because nobody's that way. And when people do that, that causes a lot of problems, because you really have to understand that you're a work in progress till you're not here. You're always going to
Mm-hmm.
be trying to do better. If you think you're all set, you totally don't know what's going on.
Yeah. But let me tell you a quick little story about me. And I thought this was crazy as hell. Okay, so I made the mistake of messing with a married man. Then conviction set kicked in, and I cut the relationship off. I no longer wanted to mess with him. I said, "Well, you know what? Get your divorce. Show me that you are over your wife, and then we could start dating again." This person did the most to try to sabotage me. Told people all type of stuff about me, and guess where he at today? Back with his wife. But you wanted me to believe you was no longer with your wife. And I said the things that people would do just to keep living a lie, but they only living a lie for themselves. I don't let nobody I'm not gonna live lies with people, go through karmic situations with people, because guess what? That stuff come back around and bite you in your ass like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
But that was crazy to me. I mean, lied, just
Well,
lied,
typically, if
argue
you
with
think
you.
about that type of guy, he's probably got multiple women he's stringing along in the same way. And kind of
Hmm.
it's the tendency is they never really going to leave their wife. They just don't like, they like the stability of having that marriage. They like the surface look of it. They like the connections they have with their church and their friends, but they don't really have a good functional relationship. It might be dysfunctional in the bedroom. And so they tend to go and try to find another woman to satisfy that, but they're never going to let go of the structure of that marriage on its, the optics of it. And a lot of women don't get that. They think, oh, I'm going to pull him out of it. And a lot of these guys are never going to get out of it. They're going to keep that
Mm-mm.
optics. They're going to keep that because it represents something for their job, for their community, for all their friends, and they're going to kind of keep you on the side and play you out. That's just the way they are. It's that kind of self deception if you think you can actually pull them out, because it's not going to work.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, like it's not. And when they know they don't got you, they use that manipulation, they use that gaslighting to try to bring you down. They even try to, tell people lies about you and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, if you're a type of person like me, you don't want no problems. I ain't worried about how nobody feel. But then you have a lot of people looking at you like you crazy because this person was able to manipulate them and had them think a certain way about you because he couldn't fool you, you know, and he couldn't fool you or trick you out of your position in life, And my thing is, that's a runner. You can't run from a situation you chose. You got to deal with that and you got to handle that properly. You have several ways to deal with that. But right now, I don't want to deal with you. I don't want you in my space, and that's crazy. It's crazy to think that people go through to lie. Like another girl, she's supposed to be a part of our family. My aunt Rose raised her mama. When her grandmother was out there, selling the body, doing drugs, doing the most, my aunt Rose loved her grandfather and raised her. She doing the most, you know, and I don't have nothing against her, but I said, well, I told my sister, your circle, you're only as good as your circle. And, you're trying to do this in life. How does that look like you hanging with somebody like that? That's pretty much being shared in groups with people because it's like they're sleeping with each other. Everybody's sleeping with each other. And herpes and syphilis is on a high rise here in my hometown. That's why I don't deal with people. And I said, well, how does that look with you having, you know, you want to marry this man, you got kids, you got a home life, you're trying to go back to school. How does that look with you having someone like that around in your space that constantly keeps tying your name up in mess? I said, I don't care who you think she is to us. Your home life is supposed to be peaceful. And and I was shocked, that it took my sister so long to cut the connection with this young lady. Because it was weird for me because me, I'm all about peace at the end of the day, and the type of lifestyle I know I want and I see myself going. So it's a lot of things I don't entertain and I don't do, and it's hurtful when you can't deal with your old friends, but it's worth it when you get to where you ultimately need and want to go, you know but it's it was just crazy when my sister was down and we're letting the hood rat go. I'm sorry for calling her hood rat, but for letting that young lady go because she was chaotic, full of drama. And then I see people who I used to once have close to me, and this is how blind we be as people. So that's why I'm like, you just gotta pay attention. When I was around these people, and I guess it's probably this is what took her so long to, you know, release the connection. Because when it's your friend, you feel like they have been good to you or done things for you. You don't really see them for who they really is. So now I see the same girl who I told my sister to let go, now hanging with girls I used to be friends with. And we all know that saying, birds of a feather flock together. So I'm just shaking my head and like, thank God for waking me up and bringing me up out of that situation, because being cool with them, ain't no telling what people were saying about me. But because, I don't do a lot of stuff, because I respect myself a little more. Like, it's just certain things you're not going to catch me down bad doing. You,
Yeah.
um, you
But yeah, I
know,
mean, I think the thing is like, people get intimidated by the circle they're in, and then they get into kind of even a codependent relationship, not with their significant other, but their general peer group, right? So peer
mhm,
groups cause a lot of peer pressure, and peer pressure can lead you to be in a very codependent situation that's not positive, and allow you to
mm-mm.
like not, somebody could be like they're gamblers or they're drug addicts or they're doing really kind of outrageous, like very risky sexual behavior that's destructive. And it's one thing if
Yeah,
you could be like a freak and you could be whatever, but you could be a responsible freak and you're actually taking care of yourself, or you could be somebody that's irresponsible and not thinking about anything, right? And just doing whatever, not taking any precautions. And it's like, okay, You could do that, but there's a consequence to that
Yeah.
behavior. You could get sick. You could get other people sick. It's like, so you got to take responsibility. If you're with people who take no responsibility for what they do, they cause harm to other people, not just themselves, but they cause harm to other people. And you can make a judgment or not make a judgment, but if people are causing harm, it's hard not to like not take into account that they're causing harm.
Hmm.
So you have to make a choice, like who you're gonna hang with. And if you got people that are, blackout drunks, total like really heavy drug users, people doing very risque behavior and not caring what it causes, there's a consequence. And you can say, oh, well, you're making moral judgments. Yeah. Well, in life, you have to make a judgment every day about what you're going to do.
Hmm.
And sometimes you have to do it for yourself. And whether or not people like it or not, you do it because you need to be where you need to be. When you
Hmm.
when you decide that you don't want that kind of negativity in your life and you can't
Yeah.
turn a blind eye to it, that's your choice, right?
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
make that choice as an adult. You make the choice what you're going to do, you know?
Yeah. See, a lot of times how I used to get suckered, and I had to wake up, because I was insane at one point. I would let a man tell me that we was gonna be in a relationship, and that's how I would get suckered. Now, you, you want to get to know me, you want to get to know me through text messaging, talking on the phone. No, you can't come to my house. No, I don't want to ride nowhere. No, I don't want to go nowhere. I want to see how long we can talk on the phone before you get tired of me because they're quick. The minute you let them come to your house, that's a wrap. No, it's time. It's time to cut that out because they think they slick. And now I'm so focused on getting my new business started. I don't pay a lot of no mind because all they want to do is play in these streets. I never known such a large group of men that swear they want a family. They want a woman that has some common sense. They want to be able to build, but all they do is play all day in the streets, and they already be having a woman. And it's crazy to me. And I'm like, do y'all really stand? What do you really stand for at the end of the day?
Well, I
You
think they
know,
want because it's expected that people get married, but then if you have this like the kind of irresponsible behavior, but you want the sheen on it that you are responsible. So what happens is you try to con a woman into being that wife, but you continue that street behavior, and because you want to have the outward appearance that you're an upstanding citizen, right? And you want to be able to go to church on Sunday and make it look like you are. And so that's always been the hypocritical thing. Like, are you gonna just be honest and live the life, and you're really not ready to be married? You're never really gonna be a marrying type of person, but you want to make it look like you are because you think
hmm
it'll help you with your job. When you have to go to a job, that people want to see your wife at the meeting, at the convention, they want to see her. So you want to get that kind of like a figurehead wife, a trophy
yeah,
wife to kind of show her around, and you still want your side girls all over the place. And women got to really be able to be careful to recognize the kind of guys that are doing that because they're going to tell you a lot of lies. Like you said, they're going to be full of lies, and then
hmm
some of the lies you probably want to hear, and that's where the hard part is like sometimes they're lying, but you like it. You like the what it sounds like, but you got to get beyond that. you
hmm
know.
yeah. You start lying to yourself, accepting his lies. You start lying to yourself, so that ultimately kind of like devalues you anyway, and kind of tear you down because you feeding yourself lies. You know. And those self affirmations real. Like I had a dream the other night about my affirmations because I fell asleep with them playing on my laptop. And I said, I would never get to a point of wanting to be in a relationship with a man. I don't care how people may look with me being a professional woman. That I would tell myself lies because that it kind of kills you. Disrespect would kill you anyway. So
Hmm.
that kind of kills the essence of who we are as people, just to be accepted in a society. And and me personally, what I'll do is I'll just pray that God send me somebody who is healed. Because I mean, if you look at the Bible, they say he that finds a wife finds a good thing. They didn't say that he that finds a bunch of hoes find a good thing. So at the end of the day, I don't know what like I don't know what's going on and how they conduct themselves and what they really think at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's always was hard. You know, when I don't have all the relationship factors. It's like all I know is like the big thing for me is when I got cancer, I had been pretty much just focused on my career, and I pretty
Yeah,
much said I don't want to date. But after the cancer,
yeah,
I almost died, and I'm like, okay, I do want to find not just a date. I want to find my soulmate. So I actually
yeah,
actively kind of put it in my head that I wanted to do that. But then what I also learned from the cancer was what I was doing wrong is I was spending too much time like saying, "Oh, why can't I find my perfect person? Why can't I find my perfect person?" I just started, you know what? I'm going to live my life with the intention of finding a wife, but I'm going to go do the things I like to do and not obsess about it. So I started mountain biking, reading poetry, working on my music, showing up at places, you know, going out and maybe not even having a date, but going to a club, going to a, you know, but I went to like coffee houses. I went and did, you know, readings. I started getting people to kind of see me and not see me like being on a club on the bar stool, see me as like an artist. And then maybe I can get somebody that actually will be interested in what I'm saying. And maybe that would actually be a more satisfying conversation because I'm going up and reading poetry. And then the woman that hears my poetry and understands it and then wants to have a cup of coffee with me and talk about it, that's deeper than anything at the bar. You
right.
know, and that's what I started to do. And I started getting way deeper conversations, way more the type of people I would think that maybe could be a soulmate because we actually could talk. And it wasn't a bunch of lies. It wasn't a bunch of come ons. It wasn't a bunch of one night stand type of conversations. It was actually serious talk, you know, and
Yeah.
because the cancer had made me be really clear. And so I wasn't afraid anymore when I talk to a person, and if I started saying, you know, I think we're really clicking and we should continue to talk, and I wouldn't be scared to say it. I wouldn't be, you know, before I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I should say something. I would just say it. I would just say, I'm going to say it like, hey, I think there's somebody that we should continue to talk. And, you know, I really dig in what we're talking about. Let's have dinner, you know,
Mhm.
and not be trying to play games. It's like, I'm actually like, I do want to keep on talking to you, and you know we just had coffee and maybe we could continue this, and that's how I met my wife. As I met her, and you know we had coffee, we started talking really deep about poetry. She actually had a play she was doing at her school. She was going to Mount Holyoke, and she was an older student at the time. She had come on a Francis Perkins scholarship as an older student coming and to finish her BA when she, you know, so she was like 5 years older than me, and
Mhm.
we just started really clicking, and she needed a musician to actually score her play. So we started having dates where I was actually, you know, coming to her apartment on the campus and actually reading her play and scoring it. And we had like a really kind of a working relationship. But I did tell her up front, it's like, I want you to know, it's like I'm not just doing this to be like your musician person. I actually, you know, dig you. I think you're cute. We this is like dating. And I'm going to be
Mhm.
clear. Don't think I'm just here to be your friend. Like I actually want to be more than your friend. And I had always made a mistake before of not being clear with a woman and them thinking I'm their friend. And I wanted her to understand that, you know, and that was a big move for me to actually be that clear. Because a lot of times, you know,
Right.
I was, and I made it real clear. So right from the start, she was like, "Wow, that's refreshing." Because some guys will kind of creep around and they like you, they don't really tell you, and maybe you think they're your friend, but they actually like you the whole time. But you know, I was accused of maybe being kind of too timid. So that's what that's how I got into the relationship with my wife because I started being honest.
And
You know,
and I
my
go through that right now, guys. That they like, I know they like me, but I don't push the issue because they're not somebody I would ever date. You know, they're. I mean, it's funny, huh? They're highly timid. They're not somebody I would ever date. I don't care like what title you have. I don't city councilman, whatever. I don't care. Like if I don't like you, I don't like you. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to. I'm gonna cheat on you, and I'm a realist. I'm a real person. If I don't like you, when I'm gonna get bored with you, and I probably gonna cheat on you. So why even set us up for disaster like that? Because I'm
yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
real.
yeah. Well,
You
I just
know?
want, yeah, you just got to be honest. Like, I had always been, intimidated with some of the women I'd been with because I know they really didn't dig me. So what was the point? And then eventually I said, well, that's not really going to work. So, I just would get out of it. And just you come with it's like it's not going to work for me because it's actually hurting my feelings to know that she doesn't isn't interested in me in that way. And if I'm going to keep on digging her like that, that's not going to work. So I just like what, I just get out of it because it wasn't positive for me. So I would say there's no point in putting myself in that situation if
Yeah.
that's the way I actually feel. I'm not going to put myself there anymore. And I realized that was a smarter way to be. And like you read the tea leaves and read what's going on. You read who the
Yeah.
people you're with, and actually be honest with like, is it actually possible to be with this person in the way that you want to be with the person? Because that's always the big
Hmm.
struggle. Romance is like, do you actually like the person more than they like you? And the worst situation is if they finally give in and they really don't like you, but you just bother them so much. As okay, I'll go out with you. Oh, I can't really find nobody else. Okay, I'll settle for you. And then you end up with a situation where they never really loved you. And
Exactly.
that's
So
not cool at all.
they're gonna be doing the most in the relationship. They're not gonna give you what you wanted. Basically you had this fantasy, and now that you got that person, you're not gonna get that fantasy. You're gonna
Yeah,
get
you don't
how
really
that
get.
person feel.
Yeah, you don't really get them because you kind of browbeated them into it. You guilted them into the relationship, and then they relented. But maybe you shouldn't have done that. You maybe should have found somebody that actually was really more in tune with you. You know.
Yeah. And me, and I gotta work on this. Sometimes I could be petty. So, if I ever find out somebody guilted me into a relationship, I'm probably gonna sleep with your uncle, your brothers, your cousins, because, maybe I'm lesson. Maybe I'm lesson that God needs to teach you, let it just be natural. Don't force things, and I had to stop forcing relationships and just seeing them for what it really is. Like this, it ain't time for this. It's not time for that. Well, maybe you need to be okay with being alone right now.
Yeah,
Cause
I mean,
really, maybe it was.
yeah, I mean, it's hard with relationships. It's hard to when you find that person that really clicks. It's kind of hard. It's like when somebody says, "Oh, okay, you just found them." Yeah, and it's kind of like that. Like for many years, I did not find anybody, and then I finally clicked with my wife, and it's like, well, how did that happen? Well, I don't know. The only thing I could say is it happened after the cancer. I got honest with myself, and I realized about my own mortality. And I think because of that situation, I really took things in a very serious way, and it made me really think about like that crucible that happened and what I was going to do. And it's like I don't want to leave this earth without having the feeling of actually being connected with somebody and then have children and have a relationship and have something stable. I wanted that. I didn't want to be by myself just doing my career and then not really have anybody. And I made that decision, and I have my 22-year-old daughter, I have my wife, and we have a home and we have a connection, and that was a conscious decision I made. I didn't want to be by myself,
Yeah,
and she came to me because I was
yeah,
ready for her to come to me.
right.
you know
And I have a new gift, a new vision. And a lot of times, we might meet someone who means well, because I'm not going to say that all my exes were just horrible people. I'm set up a certain type of way. I'm not the type of female that's okay with just sitting at home. I gotta make my money, and and I make money very well, because I overachieve a lot. And sometimes, women like myself, not saying that I'm wrong or I'm messed up or jacked off, we can make our partner feel intimidated. And if they're not secure within themselves or have did any, self work, they become very destructive um to the relationship, and feel like they have to do things to make them feel like they're the man. And that was one mistake I made, because I'm the type of person not trying to be judgmental, but sometimes you just gotta judge situations for what they is. I dated a broke man before. My one and only time. I would never do that ever again in life. Nobody could never pay me to date another broke man. And you know he complained a lot about nothing, compared to the men I usually date. And I was like, and one time I had to tell him, well, maybe if you was working, this wouldn't be such an issue for you. It, and I know it sounds, because I'm a very honest, kind of blunt person. I didn't know what else to tell him, but the truth, like, maybe if you was working, this wouldn't even be an issue. And I said, you know what? I had to tell him, like, I was at my wit's end. I was like, look, I never dated a man like you before. And he was like, oh, it's about, oh, so you materialistic. I'm just saying, no, it's a science. I learned it's a science to this, dating particular men. Men that's okay with being broke, never, never, never date them. And like you said, make sure he has his own money, his own house, his own car, because his mental is in a broader headspace. Because, you know, I was at my wit's end in that relationship. I think I pulled hair out. But I didn't want to come off as being someone that was closed minded and judgmental. But yeah, judge that situation for what it is. If he's broke, stay away.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a kind of partnership, somebody can't be that deficient. You know, they
Mhm.
can't they can't be so deficient that they can't even hold up their own bootstraps. It's like that's not going to work. I mean, so that's where you know you get professional women and they get a guy that's like mowing the lawn. And then I got to get him to get a real job. Well, if the first time you met him, he's mowing the lawn and he's like 28, he shouldn't be just mowing the lawn at age 28. That's something like a 17-year-old would be doing. So, like, if you think he's going to get somewhere better than that, maybe not.
Mm-mm.
So you gotta kind of not think you're going to change people,
Mm-mm.
right? I say that all the time because I think a lot of women that I've met have this idea that they're going to actually be able to kind of reconstruct the guy, and that's not going to work. It's very rare that that's going to work. And if that's your idea, it's kind of doomed from the start. And so you really have to be honest and find out, are you really you know looking for something, or are you like maybe you like some aspect of that guy, maybe the passion that guy has. But if that's all there is, then deal with what it really is, right? Don't try to make it more than what it
No,
is.
no, no,
That people are multifaceted. Maybe that's really good sex, and that's good, but that's not everything in life.
no. Mm-mm.
So if that's the only thing you got, that's not the only thing you're gonna that's not going to be enough. So that's where people make a mistake.
Yeah. And and I end up blocking that guy on everything, blocking him through the phone, social media, blocking him on I don't even know what his life looked like at this point, because that's one door. that I would never visit again. And I asked the question, do you got your own car? You got your own house? You know, I asked those questions. You know, and you have to, because it's not me being a gold digger. And I think a lot of men feel like a woman is being a gold digger. But if men claim brotherhood the way that they claim brotherhood, you know, they will understand it's a science to that. And then when you try to tell other men, well, I dated him and I was trying not to judge him. And it's kind of like men have this thing when it comes to women, when they say stuff, well, oh, you chose him. You know?
Yeah, yeah. That's why you got to be careful, because that's what they're gonna lay on you.
Yeah.
They're like, well, you chose me, you knew where I was. That's why I'm saying, if somebody's in a position where they're not really doing well and they've got a lot of issues, it doesn't make sense that somehow they're gonna magically fix those issues.
Mm-mm.
Most likely not. You know, and the older they are, the more likely they're not gonna change it. So that, unless you see somebody that has radically shifted, like a Malcolm X, and he's come out of prison and redesigned his whole life. If you see somebody that's transformational, yeah, once in a while you get a brother that can do that. You get a guy that learned a lesson and he's actually changing. And you can see that, but you'll see evidence of that. It's not just talking, you'll see it. You'll see it. Like, he has the house, he has the car. He used to have nothing. He built it up. He has a store. He has this. He has that. He can show it to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a lie. You know, it's not just talking at the coffee shop and saying, "Oh, I'm a Bitcoin millionaire." Really? Let me see
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like, yeah, proof in the pudding. It's like, yeah, you can't just make it up. So you don't want to get catfished by some faker, because there's a lot of fakers
Yeah.
out there. And so
Yeah.
there's people who will go make fake personalities and fake photos and fake this and fake that. Like, it's very tricky.
Yeah. It is.
But
And I'm not just saying because they got the house, they got the car. Because I know a guy who got the house and got the car, but he still got the issues. So I'm just like,
yeah, issues are
you
the
got,
primary. Yeah, if we still got issues, then you still got a problem.
yeah. So you still have to. You still, when I say you like before you open up your legs, you still got to get to know what you're dealing with, or you gonna have problems. I'm telling you, you're gonna have problems. I had problems, and I'm still shaking off the remnants of the problems that I had going back from May.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I ran into to situations where, I had situations where I would get really into women that kind of knew my weakness, right? That I had a certain weakness for, like, really, really pretty kind of model type girls, but they knew they were kind of playing me for what I could do for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they were like, oh, they needed me to help them manage some money, or they wanted me to do this, and they knew I was in insurance and finance, but they had no intention of really being my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
They just knew I could help them, and they would kind of play games and act like they were. And I just like having them on my arm at the club because it looked cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then they weren't really there. It's kind of like, oh, I'm impressing my guy friends. I had this super model looking woman with me, and they're like, wow, how did you get her? And like, but she wasn't really there for me. It was kind of like she's playing me, and I'm kind of using her. And I'm like, oh, you know what? That's not working no more. That's it. I'm not playing that kind of game. I want something more substantial. I don't like that fake. I decided that's after the cancer. I say I'm not going to do BS like that. I want to have something real, not some kind of fake thing. I want something more substantial. And I just had to stop being stupid. And so I was like, well, I look in the mirror and I'm not doing that. And
Yeah.
I just stopped.
Yeah.
And it's hard, because
Yeah.
it's hard to go to a dead stop if you've been doing something,
Yeah.
and you got to get out, you know. So it's yeah, I think it's just a lesson, and everybody's not in the right position to actually do it. Like, sometimes you could be in a place in your life and people could be telling you you need to do this, and you can't do it until you're ready to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, It's like if you're not ready to do it, you're just gonna keep on failing.
Exactly. Because it's all in what you're able to withstand with your mental. And see, me, I don't put more on me than what I can bear, because I consider myself to be God. I'm made in His image, so I only do what I can do. I don't try to do what everybody wants me to do, because everybody wants me to do everything, and there's no way I can do that. Now I have to put IKisha first, and put these boys first, and get us back on stable foundation. So, and one of the big things was, I don't deal with certain people no more, and I don't let nobody play with me. And when a person can't use you, the first thing they would try to say about you, were you difficult? Are you draining? And I'm like, well, no, what's draining is that you thought that you would be able to use me, you know, for your own personal gain. And I figured you out. Now that's draining, so people have to keep their distance, because the first thing we go into, oh, that's witchcraft, or how she knew. And I'm like, well, people tell on themselves every day. You tell on yourself, you think that you can hold a secret, but you can't really keep a secret, you know? And it seep out your pores. It comes out in your conversation. And people need to learn how it's not hard to just be honest. At times I feel like I'm too honest. But I think it's a defense mechanism for me to keep the wrong people away. So have you kind of had that issue where people just really just tell on themselves when they talk to you? Because it'd be crazy, like they realize tell on themselves. And then they act like you're supposed to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, I just ended up. I had some toxic people in my own family, some cousins that were doing all kinds of stuff, and they always wanted me to kind of try to like if they felt if I was around them, then they kind of blessed what they were doing because I would start being responsible, so they could try to do crazy stuff, and then say, "Well, Keith was with me." I was like, "They said, well, I'm not going to be there to kind of support your nonsense."
Hmm.
you know, and even you're my cousin, and everybody thinks because I'm your older cousin, that I should kind of be watching you. And I felt like my uncle was trying to put me in a situation where he wanted me to watch his son to make sure he didn't make stupid mistakes. But the problem I told my uncle is like his stupid mistakes are going to rub on me,
Hmm.
and they're going to mess me up. And I'm not, he's your son. You need to take responsibility. I'm not taking responsibility because you don't feel like, watching him 24/7. I'm not going to be the one watching him, you know. And I just like I kind of was getting manipulated by my uncle, and he would go always saying to my mom, "Oh, your son is helping me a lot," and I'm like, but I don't want to have that job. That's not my job,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Because I'm not doing,
What
you know.
Yeah. I have grown really for them to say I'm not really friendly like that no more. I'm not like, I have my own issues, my own stuff I have to figure out. I can't play babysitter to adults. And y'all not paying me. That's what I'm like. Pay me for my time and my services. It's well worth it. Y'all not paying me, so I'm about to go.
Yeah, I'm not doing it for free.
Yeah.
Like I'm tired of it.
Mm-mm.
And the icing on the cake was one time he went out. I refused to go with him out on a Halloween,
Hmm.
and I said, can he doing all kinds of nonsense? And then I come to hear the next morning that he crashed his car off the interstate, and the passenger side door was crushed in by a tree he hit.
Mm.
And if I had gone with, I would have been dead. So the fact that I decided to not be with him anymore was like I picked the right time
Hmm. Yeah.
because he was being so irresponsible that I could have got killed.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, that made me feel good about the decision I made. It's like he was just out of control, and it wasn't my job to monitor him.
Yeah.
You know, he needed something to happen to make him realize how stupid he was. He wrecked his car. He had to go and get all the money back to fix that. He did a DWI. He got in trouble, and he had to fix all that, and he couldn't hide it anymore. You know, and because I used to be the one, potentially would have took the wheel and maybe not even been in this situation because I would have drove the car because I wouldn't have been drunk. But the fact that he was so irresponsible that he went to do that, I just said, well, I can't be with this guy no more because he's not under control until he fixes himself.
Right.
And sometimes you got to get those toxic people, even if they're in your family, out of your life
Yeah.
because it's not gonna, just because they're family don't mean that you should have to deal with
And,
them.
and that's true. I don't have that many per se toxic people. You know, I'm like I say, I'm not. I don't really talk to family like that or hang out. Hang out with my family like that because we all have different personalities. You know, and I'm more of a homebody. I'll come up for air every now and then, but I'm at peace when I'm at home. So so we don't hang out, and I have not heard of nobody getting beat up or because a lot of them got a lot of common sense. Now we crazy. I'm gonna say that we crazy as hell, but for the most part they got common sense. Like I'm proud of my family. Like I don't never really hear a lot of stuff about them wilding out, acting crazy. A lot of stuff be rumors and lies and stuff like that. You know what people
Mm.
do. So but there is one in the bunch of many, you know and I'm not going to speak on that, but it's just the elevation. It's like I see it. I see my growth from 2019 till today, and I'm still growing. I still have what they consider some wild ways. I'm woke about what type of relationship I want. I know what kind of contribution I want to do to for my community, and we pretty much discuss everything tonight um, on this podcast, and some things that we could possibly do together, or maybe you could send somebody my way if you don't have time, because I know your wife is healing right now. Um, just seeing how we can move forward with the way that times is changing, and and bringing the community up out of this what I consider a Great Depression.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally into that, but will try to figure out how we can do something. I am kind of
Yeah,
really spending a lot of time doing housework and doing a lot of extra stuff because my wife can't do it. So I don't have as much time as I used to with some of the other things I'm doing, but I always try to make time for things I think are worthwhile. I would say that like I do have some things I have to do tonight, and I've enjoyed our conversation. So when the time runs out on this, we'll probably end the podcast there.
yeah.
But we could wait like 7 minutes before it ends. But yeah, I did end up creating a whole nother profile here, and so I ended up missing you when I created a new one. I didn't see you anymore, so I'm glad that you chatted back. I didn't know what happened. I couldn't find you.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I tell
but
you, I for some reason, it was crazy. Like I told you, I said I've been praying for you and your family, and I didn't even know what was going on. But God just placed it on my heart just to pray for you and your family, and to check in with you, and and find out tonight, what was going on. So yeah, it's crazy how life, you know how I connect with people that I'm supposed to connect to. I try to be genuine. I try to be kind. And I really, at this point in my life, because I feel like I have no choice, I try to do what's right. Um, and I let him lead. I no longer try to lead anything anymore. So if it's meant to be, it's gonna be.
Well, I'm glad that we reconnected. Like I said, I had been on this platform before as just a Phantom Electric Ghost, and people didn't see my face, and then I reconfigured it to actually show my face here
Yeah.
because different type of audience. On my other sites, I still kind of have my Phantom look, but I decided like, well, this is a different type of platform, so I decided to rebuild and restart it. And when I did, it seemed like I lost some of the connections to some of the people I had been on here. So I had been on here, but you probably didn't see me because I had my regular name.
Oh, okay.
Um, so
Okay.
so I actually was on the platform, and I've been doing talks under this. If you check it under Keith Giddens Jones, you'll see there's a bunch of conversations I've had here.
Oh, okay.
Um, uh, but I just changed the whole thing because I played some of my music and they booted me off.
I, look, probably one of them songs you had sent me. I got it. I got the message clearly. I got the message. Look, but I do want to say I'm so proud that were able to reconnect, friend. There's no rush. We do have a lot of time because I'm resting. I'm spending the rest of this year with family. Then it's tax season, and then like I told you, I'm gonna study so we can probably we'll see what happens
Yeah,
next
well,
year.
yeah, we definitely can figure something out. We could always try to schedule another podcast like this,
Yes.
sometime,
Yeah.
and that's
Most definitely.
cool. And eventually, if you ever do want to do the video one, we can set that one up so we can actually show you have it come up on my video one.
Oh yeah.
It takes a little work to do that. You got to be on the laptop. You got to make sure the mic works. You got to make sure you got good Wi-Fi. So I have a whole process where I kind of check to see if it's going to work, and then once I know it works, we can schedule it. We could do something like that.
Well, yeah, we can do a video like in a month, because I would love to promote my new business, which is my tax business. I do taxes now. Um,
Yeah, we could do.
yeah,
Yeah, we could do it.
I'm certified, and then hopefully by March, my family business, you guys, us dealership. I constructed a car lot from the ground up. So hopefully by March we will have our grand opening for that. I can now talk about stuff because we're good to go. So I'm very, I did everything that I said I was going to do. I gave it to God, and I have been able to do it. So a lot of things have happened that tried to stop me from getting that car lot off the ground. But I'm so proud because my family will be the first Black family in my area to have a car lot, and my dad was given the vision and I carried it out for him. So we have a building. I'm so elated. Right now we're just working with some investors that came to us out the blue, so God's been good, like, because the girl stole my money and I didn't know where I was gonna get the money from, and now we got investors.
But yeah, I mean, it's cool to keep on moving. Like today, like I had this thing happen with my sponsor, Newsly.
Hmm.
They gave me a new opportunity to make side income.
Yeah.
I've been doing well with the pod match. I'm actually working with another sponsor that is trying to set up some like infomercials on my podcast.
Hmm.
So I'm actually opening into like having businesses do like 30-minute like commercials for their business on my podcast as a not an episode but more of a business type episode that is more of a it's an ad for that business,
Yeah.
so it's not typically like a conversation like this, but I'm opening up my podcast to be able to support things that actually can bring in income.
Right.
So you say things like that. You do a 30-minute infomercial. It shows up maybe once a week or twice a week. All the rest of this stuff is not like that, but that helps pay the bills and keep you out there. So I've been trying to kind of balance the commercial kind of need to make money and also to still have open conversation, but also find a way to actually make it a business. So I'm trying to bring my podcast into more of a capitalist model.
Right. Well, I'm so happy for you because you've been doing this for a very long time. And like I said, I promoted for you. I did a share to all my social media with your email connected. So hopefully, look in your email. You might get some people that may want to do a show. I did put the
Awesome.
guidelines that you required them to share your stuff and to follow you, your YouTube as well. So hopefully they comply and move forward from there. Is like I support anybody. I think I'm gonna give up my podcasting and just support other people podcasts. Because
Hmm.
I already got a lot going on, and I don't want to be
Yeah,
spread too thin. So,
always on my podcast and talk with your stuff like through my platform if you want. So that's cool.
all right, cool, and I'm all game for it. But have a good night, Mr. Phantom, and keep in touch. Keep me updated.
I definitely will. Thank you very much, Ikisha, and everybody. We had a great conversation. I think I'm going to share this onto my Facebook,
Yeah,
so I'll do that. So thank you very much.
you up.
Okay, good night. So we're gonna go to Facebook and just share this now. Thank you everybody for listening to us. That was IKisha Hugee, and we're very happy that she was on. We used to talk a lot on this platform when I was known as Philanthropic Ghost. I'm still Philanthropic Ghost, but it's Keith Kidden Jones. Check out Philanthropic Ghost on philanthropicghost.com. Check out Peg Forever, and then also I'm going to be pushing this over to Facebook so you can listen to that there, and be safe out there, and keep striving to be the best you can be.
Scrolling and start listening, and use coupon code GHOST2020. No, use coupon code GHOST. It's not 2021 anymore. You just use Ghost, and you get 1 month free premium subscription. So check out Newsly. This podcast will be on Newsly. Thank you very much. We're going to put this on Anchor FM, and it will be on Spotify. And later, we're going to make a version on YouTube. Thank you very much for listening to Phantom Electric Ghost.